This is chapter 10 of Mary Monroe's God Don't Like Ugly. History was my worst subject, but it was the only class I had with Rhonda, so I didn't mind going to it. Since she was everything I wanted to be and more, I even looked forward to each day. Each day, I'm sorry. I flunked most of the tests and arrived late 2 or 3 times a week because this was my first class after lunch. I was always one of the last ones to leave the cafeteria because I usually went back in line to get additional helpings of whatever was on the menu. I had been in the new school for several days before I got up enough nerve to approach Rhonda without her inviting me. The cafeteria was crowded for lunch that day. Sadly, it was divided by race. Our local news covered all the racial problems black people were having down south, especially the violence. There was an occasional fight in our school between somebody black and somebody white. Sometimes it was over something as innocent as a comment made about somebody's mother. The words nigger and honky eventually came up during the confrontation, and that made it a race incident. I think all that had a lot to do with people making such a big deal out of somebody's color, even in Ohio. It wasn't a rule like down south, but we still had to deal with segregation. Property managers found ways not to rent to blacks. Jobs advertised in the paper were suddenly filled when a black person attempted to apply. And the service black folks received in some restaurants was so bad, it was better not to go there in the first place. Most of the time, when I attempted to sit with white kids in the cafeteria, they gave me dirty looks and sometimes said something mean about my mama or just moved to another table. It seemed like everything was based on black or white and a few colors in between, even lunch in junior high school. The only Asian girl in our school was sitting with the school's only 4 Hispanic kids at a table in the back of the cafeteria. Near the black kids, Rhonda was sitting at a front table alone reading Ebony magazine. I was sitting at the other end. I was sitting at another table halfway between the white kids and us across the room by myself. I don't know how I got up the nerve, but I decided to take my tray and go over to her. Most of the food on her tray had not even been touched. I didn't know what to say to her. I took a deep breath, walked across the room to the table by the exit where she was sitting and said, "Can I have your French fries?" I sat down across from her. "Sure," she smiled. She sighed and pushed her tray towards me, then returned her attention to the magazine. "Annette, right?" she asked, not looking up. "Yep, just like the white girl from the Mickey Mouse Club on TV," I told her. She didn't look at me again until I let out a belch that could be heard halfway across the room. "Excuse me," I mumbled, my face burning with embarrassment. Black kids and white kids snickered and glared at me. I had even eaten the French fries in record time. I was horrified at my behavior. "And are you still hungry?" "If you are, I'll go and get some more," she told me. "Yeah," I mumbled, "with ketchup." "Can I watch you eat them?" she asked softly. Our eyes met for a moment. She seemed to be studying me. Suddenly, I felt like the main attraction in a circus sideshow. "What? Why do you want to watch me eat some French fries?" I wanted to know. "I've never seen anybody enjoy food like you," she said, and an incredulous look on her face. "You finished those fries in less than a minute." Did I? Don't you eat fries?" I asked. "Every once in a while. I have to watch my weight. Besides, the fries here are sometimes so greasy, I wouldn't feed them to a hog I don't like." The fries suddenly lost their appeal, as did everything else edible. "Yeah, they are greasy, and I'm kind of full," I muttered. "But you can go get me some candy bars if you don't mind." Oh, you like candy too?" "Uh-huh." "Oh, put it like this. Can you see my eyes? I like, I know how to make this real good candy with molasses and peanuts. One day I'll make you some, huh?" Yeah, I tried to conceal my excitement. I was liking this girl more and more. I'll go get you some M&Ms for now. You like them? Oh, yes. I like them a whole lot, I admitted. Hurry up, I urged. To my surprise, she seemed as excited as I was. She gave me that smile again, then excused herself. The next day, I attempted to copy Rhonda's answers on her history test. I sat one desk behind her in the next row. She saw me and rolled her eyes at me in such an evil way I shuddered. I hadn't seen anybody roll their eyes that hard since I left Florida. I lowered my head and started tapping my pencil on the desk. I felt pretty low by the time I arrived home that evening. Mama had left a note saying that she wouldn't be home until after 10 p.m. and that I'd better do everything Mr. Boatwright told me to do. Pee Wee was already in our living room with Mr. Boatwright gossiping away. Minutes after Pee Wee left, Mr. Boatwright was on top of me in the living room floor. All the while I lay under him, I was thinking about Rhonda. I wondered what she was really like. The next moment, a strange feeling consumed me. I had developed my first crush. I was in love with Rhonda. How come you so flexible this time? Mr. Boatwright wanted to know, grinning proudly. Seems like you finally getting the hang of things. Praise the Lord. That evil. Ooh! Seems like you finally getting the hang of things. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord when you wake up in hell. How about that? Anyway, we had dressed and I was helping him back to the couch. I had somebody on my mind, I told him. My boldness surprised me. Somebody likes me. Well, he paused and tilted his head, beamingly proud. I guess I still got it, huh? He let out his breath and slapped his hands on his hips. I sat down on the arm of the couch and stared at him in disbelief. Oh, no, not you. The pretty girl across the street, the undertaker's daughter. I wondered what it would be like to hug her and kiss her the way Mr. Boatwright hugged and kissed me. Rhonda? A sad look appeared on his face. He was clearly disappointed. Uh-huh, she's real nice to me. One time she gave me her French fries at lunch and went and bought me some M&Ms. She said me and her and Pee Wee can study sometimes. Mr. Boatwright gasped. What? Now why would a gal like that want to hang around with a booger like you? That little heifer thinks she white anyway. His comments hurt me severely. She's a nice girl, and I think she likes me, I told him. I think she wants to be my friend. I smiled. He frowned. My first real girlfriend, I added, still smiling. The scowl on his face became so profound. His mouth looked like it had been turned upside down, and his eyebrows seemed to protrude. That whole uppity Nelson family ain't nothing but a generation of vipers, girl, with they no pork eating selves. When they shit, it stink just as pooty as ours, probably even worse. Jealous. I don't care what you say. You sassy me? It was hard to believe, but the scowl on his face got even worse. He drew back to slap me. No, sir, I whimpered with my head bowed submissively. Now, let me find the TV guard. Let's find the TV guard, he said almost cheerfully. His scowl suddenly disappeared, and he looked like his old self, which was still bad, but not nearly as threatening. Later that night, just before Mama got home, Mr. Boatwright came to my room and dropped his evil body onto my bed right next to me and started shaking and humming. Hush, little baby. Mr. Boatwright, I began. He turned his face to me, still rocking my bed and humming. Mr. Boatwright, why do you keep doing what you are doing to me after all these years? I asked. I had caught him off guard. What do you mean? He gasped and stood, his narrow eyes darting from side to side. You know, I read a lot of books. And that's another thing. And all them books, gibberish, worldly, I can smell the brimstone. I can smell the brimstone. Everything you need to know in the Bible, girl. I've learned a lot from books other than the Bible. This is what Ned is telling him. I've learned a lot from books, and they ain't the Bible. So you can run that shit somewhere else. Things I need to know. I know what you do to me is wrong, I said calmly. I think the fact that I didn't raise my voice or seem mad made him even angrier. If looks could kill, I probably would have dropped dead on the spot right then and there. I had never seen him look at me in such a mean way. You mean what we do? But I don't want to. And you know I don't want to, I wailed. You know I don't like it. Why do you still do it? Suddenly he looked at the floor and let out his breath. Then he looked at me with a straight face and whined. After all I do for you. How come you so mean to me, Possum? His words made me gasp. When I didn't respond, he lowered his head and shuffled out of my room, gently closing the door. And that is the conclusion of chapter 10, all in one setting. Mary Monroe's God Don't Like Ugly. Here he is, y'all. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.